Hi, let's welcome Vanessa back. And Vanessa, what's going on in your neck of the woods in Lebanon at the moment? Ah, actually, Vanessa's not. Are you there?
I am here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So let's go with Lebanon.
Yes, first of all, I just wanted to remind people this is the US Embassy in Lebanon. Something I can't remember how many football pitches it is, but it's vast. It's a garrison, 5,000 employees. The only bigger one is in Iraq, which of course has been colonized by the US for more than 30 years. It's a military center headquarters on one of the highest hills above the city of Beirut. So just to put everything into context about what I'm going to be talking about. And of course, yesterday was the end of the ceasefire. Um, and although Israel has withdrawn from the majority of the areas in the south, of course, they've continued both to violate before and after the actual withdrawal. And they maintained their occupation in 5 key areas, which we've been talking about, which are the 5 main hills. If you just move on to the actual map, the little red triangles are quite small, but you can freeze the screen and then be able to see them. But all the areas in red are basically the high points and strategic points in southern Lebanon, where Israel has not only maintained a presence, but is now, of course, building a military footprint, and that is ongoing. Now, what has also been extraordinary, we're heading towards the funeral of the assassinated Syed Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, who was killed in an appalling way using about 80 bombs to target his area, of course, killing multiple civilians during the attack, and potentially having used a tactical nuke because depleted uranium has been identified in the area where Syed Nasrallah was killed. So bearing in mind we're heading on the 23rd for this funeral, 1.5 million to 2 million people are expected to attend the funeral. Guess what? The Israel suddenly tells the US that they must block an Iranian flight returning from Tehran to Beirut after Israel claimed that the IRGC was smuggling cash on civilian planes. So we have a very familiar story here. And in fact, it was Lebanese civilians who were turned back and had to return to Tehran after a spiritual visit to Tehran. And of course, what happened then, there were mass protests, and these protests were not only from Hezbollah, they were from Lebanese civilians who said, we're not going to be dictated to who can land at our airport by Israel and the United States. This is a sovereign country. And here you have a protester at the International Airport Road holds up a sign saying the road towards the airport is not Israeli. And eventually what happened is the Lebanese army fired on the protesters, both using live ammunition and tear gas. And of course, that infuriated people even more, because for how long the Lebanese army has been allowing the Israelis to target Lebanese civilians in the south and has not intervened at all. And case in question is 13-year-old Khadija Atwi. Here she is with the photo of her father, who was martyred in the last war. She's 13 years old. She was hit by an Israeli sniper in her cheek in Hula, one of the villages close to the borderline with the occupied Palestinian territories. And as her sister said in a report to Al Mayadeen, if we can just have the next slide, please. On February the 16th, Israel occupation forces opened fire on and killed 13-year-old Khadija Atwi in Hula. But what they don't mention is that they left her to bleed out. Moments before her murder, she told her sister, I miss my dad and want to visit his grave. A minute later, a bullet struck her cheek, an injury her sister says shouldn't have been fatal. In an interview with Mayadeen, one of her sisters revealed that the Israeli occupation forces arrived in civilian jeeps in an obvious attempt at deceiving ruler's residence before opening fire at them. Her sisters also denounced the Lebanese government's failure to act swiftly, saying that if the Lebanese army had received orders to, just like the ones they were given on the airport road, if they had fired tear gas at the Israeli enemy, they could have saved the child who died, as I said, from basically bleeding out. And then again, it was exposed this week by Dr. Elias Jradi, who's one of the ophthalmologists dealing with the hideous pager attacks that blinded and maimed multiple civilians in southern Lebanon last year. The US sanctions at that time were imposed deliberately to ban the import of corneas needed for eye surgeries. So the actual suffering, if you remember, they cancelled flights, evacuating people outside of Lebanon for treatment. And to add to the injury, now Air France and Emirates have suspended their flights to Beirut on February the 23rd. So this can only be seen as a vindictive campaign to prevent people being able to peacefully honor the loss of one of the most important figures in Lebanon.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. Thank you. We'll talk more about that in extra, I'm quite sure.